Okay. It's now 7 p.m. on September 17th, 2019, and I'd like to welcome you to our regularly called board meeting tonight. It's just so crazy. When I walked in the door, it was 97 degrees, and we're almost to October. It's kind of mind-boggling. And I think we're going to have 2 days of cool, and then they're calling for right back to the heat. So I guess we're just going to keep the shorts in our closets and in our drawers. Anyway, we are so glad you're here with us tonight on this hot evening. Do I hear a motion to adjourn executive session and enter into open session?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Green. Are there any questions or comments regarding the adjournment? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. I would like to call to order the general session of the September 17th, 2019 board meeting. The district is in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. We have notified the media of the date, time, and place of this meeting. The district also tapes the meetings for accuracy in preparing the minutes. At this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Anderson for our invocation. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you. If you'd bow your heads, please. Our Heavenly Father, we are gathered before you here tonight and ask for your guidance as we put children first as our primary purpose in our gathering, and hope that we are given your guidance to do all that is good and right for the children of our district. In your name we pray. Amen. And if you would join me now and rise for the presentation of the colors.
Whoa. Oh, wait a minute. That wasn't what we were doing.
Halt. Left. Face. Present. Colors.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Colors.
Do we have a microphone? Wait just 1 second. We need a microphone. Microphone. Here. It should be on.
Okay, good evening. I'm First Sergeant David Pelley from the White Knoll High School Navy Junior ROTC. I'm joined tonight by Commander Dunn, the Senior Naval Science Instructor. I'm also joined by the Professor of Naval Science from the University of South Carolina, Captain Rob Osterhout, and the Principal of White Knoll High School, Mr. Ted Daughtry. And we are here tonight to celebrate a great success for one of our cadets in the ROTC program, and that is our Cadet Commanding Officer, Autumn Simpson. So I'm going to read. The Legion of Valor of the United States of America Incorporated was designed to stimulate development of leadership and give an award annually for achievement of scholastic excellence in military and academic subjects. This award, a Bronze Cross and certificate, is awarded to outstanding junior ROTC cadets. Criteria for the award of the Bronze Cross for Achievement has been developed by the Legion of Valor in conjunction with officials of the Navy, Army, and Air Force. To be considered for the award, a cadet must promote patriotic allegiance, demonstrate excellence in military, scholastic, and civic affairs, and be in the top 10% of their class. It is my pleasure tonight to present Cadet Commander Autumn Simpson as a recipient of this award. Autumn was one of 22 cadets chosen nationwide from all junior ROTC programs. More than 9,000 applicants competed for this award. Autumn Simpson has a weighted GPA of 5.127 and is ranked 5 out of 443 students in her senior class at White Knoll High School. Autumn is active in student government, participates in the school's improv troupe, and plays the piano. She is a member of the National Honor Society, and this year she is dual enrolled. Outside of the academic realm, Autumn is involved in helping others. She is the creator of a group called Recharge, which supports students who are going through difficult times. Additionally, she is the senior cadet in the Navy Junior ROTC program, and she is the unit's commanding officer. Tonight, Captain Rob Osterhout, the commanding officer, will present the Legion of Valor for academic achievement to Cadet Autumn Simpson.
Attention. Carry. Colors. Ready. Cut. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Okay.
Order. Colors.
Let's give Autumn another round of applause. And if I may, can her parents stand up and let's give them a round of applause too? 'Cause and if you haven't figured it out yet, she had no clue that was going to happen tonight. So congratulations, Autumn.
That took a lot of secret keeping to make happen. So we're glad that all worked. Thank you, Mary Beth, for arranging that. That was fantastic.
Okay, board, we'll continue on. I don't know how we can beat that, but anyway. Board, at item 5.0 is approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions or comments regarding the agenda? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries and it is unanimous. Board members, you have been provided copies of the minutes of the August 20th, 2019 regular board meeting. Other than the corrections already provided and made, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the meeting? Hearing none, the minutes will be accepted as received. Board, if you'll go to 7.0, which are reports and action items from executive session. Do I hear a motion to approve 8 certified recommendations for the 2019-2020 school year?
Madam Chair, I move the board accept the 8 certified employee recommendations for the 2019-2020 school year as made by Dr. Little and the senior leadership team.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Board, are there any questions or comments? I just would like to ask Mr. Stacy, how many do we have left? Are we looking pretty good? Yeah. So,
I wonder why y'all are doing this. I was like, what are they doing that for? I was saying we are in pretty good shape right now. We have a couple of positions that we're already looking for January, trying to find December grads. We had to make some shifts in some high school schedules and move some classes to second semester, but we continue to work. We're already looking at strategies for the 2021 school year as far as recruitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stacy, and thank your team for all they've done to make that happen. So we had a motion and a second. All in favor of accepting those 8 certified recommendations for the 2019-2020 school year, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and it is unanimous. In executive session, we did receive legal advice concerning 4 pending lawsuits. 3 of the lawsuits do not require action at this time, but I believe action is required on 1 of them. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the board decline to accept the settlement proposal made to the board today by the plaintiff in Garris v. Lexington School District 1.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. So that's Green and Anderson. Are there any questions or comments before we vote, board? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of declining the lawsuit, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and all opposed to declining the lawsuit, please say no. And I would like to mention that Ms. Garris has been recused on this vote, so she is abstaining as a recusal on this vote. So the motion is 6 in favor of declining the settlement and none in favor of accepting it. So we do decline the offer of the settlement. Board members, we are considering a property contractual matter related to the relocation of Lexington Middle School. As a reminder, Dr. Guyton has recused himself and was not part of that discussion. Let's see, we've got 2 motions on this. Do we want to do one each and then talk about it? So let's go with the first motion. Do I hear a motion regarding the property contractual matter related to the relocation of Lexington Middle School?
Madam Chair, I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to amend the option agreement dated March 20th, 2019 with Teresa W. Betzel to remove item 4.04 of Article 4 contingencies.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Salters, who will walk us through these motions, and then we'll have another motion after this that we will be voting on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This motion relates to item 4.04 in Article 4 contingency section of the option agreement that was entered into with Ms. Teresa Betzel on March 20th of 2019. Item 4.04 indicates buyer shall be successful in acquisition of adjoining properties having TMS number 004300-04-048 to satisfy the acreage and/or access needs for the school site. And the administration is recommending the removal of that contingency item.
Okay. So at this point, that is the motion we have on the floor to remove that contingency. So let's go ahead and take a vote on that, and then we'll read the next motion. Oh, thank you. Do we have any further questions or comments regarding that at this time? Okay, no? Okay, we'll take a vote on the first motion. All in favor of the motion, and Ms. Green, will you reread it one more time?
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to amend the option agreement dated March 20th, 2019 with Teresa W. Betzel to remove item 4.04 of Article 4 contingencies.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. And we did have a second from Dr. Powers. So all in favor of removing this contingency, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, do we have any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, so the motion carries. It is a 5-to-1 vote with 1 recusal. Okay, at this time, I'm going to call on, I believe it's Mr. Anderson that has the second motion, please.
Madam Chair, I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the purchase of 2 pieces of property per an agreement dated March 20th, 2019 with Teresa W. Betzel. The properties are known by Lexington County as TMS number 004300-04-075 and TMS number 004-300-04-016. The consideration for this property is $1,594,575. This total equates to $47,500 per acre.
Okay, we now have a motion on the floor from Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. We now have a second. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Salters to walk us through this, and then board after that, we'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Direct your attention to the screens. Have some exhibits for your reference this evening. First of all, I'd like to have you recall that the relocation of the Lexington Middle School campus was part of the facility study recommendation and then carried to the board before the 2018 bond referendum and became part of that program. And so the voters voted in November of 2018 and approved unanimously to relocate this campus among all of the other building program projects. What you're seeing here is a prototype rendering of the Lexington Middle School site. This is actually Pelion Middle School that we're currently building. It may look very familiar to the current Beechwood Middle School campus because we just opened it in August, and that was the first version of the prototype. This rendering here in Pelion is version 2, and so this Lexington Middle School campus would be version 3 of that prototype. So just want to put that out there for you to have a reference to see, get a feel for what the school might look like. Talking about the proposed site that you have a motion for now, I'm going to use my pointer on the screen on the left, or try to here. This is the current Lexington Middle School site. Just to orient you, we have North Lake Drive, and we have Highway 378. Dreer Street comes in right here. If you followed this road on down, you'd come into the courthouse. This is Highway 6 that comes down to the dam if you followed it all the way out. Old Cherokee is right here that cuts over and meets up with Pilgrim Church up in the top portion of the screen there. You follow this on around, and you end up at the Publix there at the top of the hill. Just to kind of orient you to where the property is, we've talked about this several times before. I want to zoom in for a few minutes and look at specifically the current Lexington Middle School site. As you recall through our conversations in the past, the current Lexington Middle School site is roughly 16 acres. It's kind of hard to make out some of the buildings there, and I think I've just lost my pointer. There it is. But you have the main campus here. There is a small practice field in the back. There's an entrance here on Abbey Lane. There's an entrance, small entrance to the office area, and a small parking lot here off of North Lake. There's an exit right here that's off of the teacher parking lot. And then over here, get back to it, this is Dreer Street, and there's an entrance to the facility here, and then an exit here for the buses. And so this site has served the district for many, many years. It actually was the original Lexington, not the original, but it served as a Lexington High School when it was built. Originally, the school was located right down the street, and it served grades K through 12. But now that served Lexington High School until Lexington High School opened in the late 70s at its present location. It became Lexington Middle School at that time. There is on this campus now a series of buildings. If you're familiar with the campus, there are a number of buildings students have to move in and out. It is a challenge for us to secure because of all of the door access points. It has very limited parking, very limited stacking, as we call it, for parents to queue up and drop their students off. It also has basically no storm detention on the property. This property was developed prior to the stormwater regulations and stormwater management guidelines that our county has in place now. And so if you look very closely when you're sitting at this red light, you can see a ditch right here in this corner, and that's really the only spot where stormwater is collected on this site. So it's very limited. So it presents a number of challenges to try to redevelop the campus, and so that's why in the building program it was looked at and discussed and decided to relocate the campus. A couple of other things that are going on here, and I'll point these out. We are working with the town of Lexington, and they are actually in the process of relocating Dreer Street. And so Dreer Street comes up here, and on my next slide I'll show you, it will curve around. This intersection right here at Dreer and North Lake will close and no longer be accessible, and that is a goal to improve this intersection. There are 43,000 cars a day that travel in front of this campus. And so by taking that intersection from 4 legs to 3, that will improve the flow of traffic going through Lexington. It will cut off and restrict our access to the campus, to the current site. We also will lose this driveway access right here, this exit. We will lose this entrance and exit to our main office area. Those driveway access points will go away, and so we will be limited to a driveway here and a driveway here off of Abbey Lane. And these further demonstrate the development that's going to occur. So if you look at this map, Lexington Middle School is sitting right up here on the top. This is actually Lexington Elementary School down here. And you can see they're going to relocate Dreer and curve it around and connect it just past where Azalea Drive connects in right now. And this will, continue the one-way pair project that has been implemented in the town. And so it will allow 2 lanes of through traffic all the way through the intersection there at the current Dreer Street. So it's slated to provide significant improvements to the traffic flow in the town of Lexington. But it does impact our campus. And again, this is another shot of that other end of that traffic development. And so Lexington Middle School would be down here in this corner, and you can see the through lanes. The nice thing about this is when the town finishes, if you make your way this way, you will no longer sit at this intersection if you are going on towards Columbia. There are 2 through lanes of traffic that will continue to flow and not have to stop at that red light. So that's a pretty powerful movement that'll occur there. And you'll have to stop for a left turn movement. But those are things the town of Lexington's doing. We've worked with the town of Lexington about this relocation. They're very pleased with our plan to move the Lexington Middle School campus away from this intersection, as it is the most traveled intersection in this area by far. So with that being said, we evaluated basically every parcel of land that was in the Lexington Middle School attendance area. And we looked at, we had option agreement on these 2, actually 3 parcels, the lower parcel here in blue, and then the red parcels. The red parcels are the ones that we are talking about tonight. The blue parcel, we originally were looking to try to site the school in the middle of these parcels so that we would have a secondary access point to Cherokee Trail. And the board, in your process, you take appraisals on property, and as you negotiate an option agreement, and the seller in that particular case and the board cannot come to terms on a price that was close to the appraised value of that piece of property. So when that happened, we rediverted and focused our efforts on this piece of land. And really, the idea is that by focusing here, we will spend a little bit more money improving Old Cherokee Road. By buying this, we would have spent a little bit more money on land and done less improvement on Old Cherokee Road. So it's kind of one or the other, but it will work either way. So we're now focused in on the red parcels, and so I'll just zoom in on that briefly for you. And just to point out, the current traffic counts on Old Cherokee Road, there are about 10,000 cars that move across that road every day versus the 43,000 that move across the road at Lexington Middle School now. And I would remind you that many of the 10,000 cars that move across to go to Lexington Middle School make up part of that 43,000 because many of those folks are going to Lexington Middle School to drop their children off now. So there's some duplication of count there. So looking at this parcel specifically, looking at the topographic, the slopes of the parcel, you can see we're at about the 360 elevation line. It does go down. There is a low point on the site around 320 here in this area, and then comes back up to 344 on the back side of the site here. And I just point out, just for your reference, this is the Beechwood Middle School site that we just developed. And we were at 436 on the high point of that site, and then we're down at 372 here. So, you know, roughly 50-foot elevation change. And what you'll find as we develop, and you can see this at Beechwood, we use that terrain to our advantage, and all of the retention and stormwater management occurs in the lower portion of the site. And you'll see that in a few minutes. The stormwater management will occur primarily in these low areas of the site. And so having a slope to a site is not necessarily a bad thing. Looking at the wetland area on the site, there is an intermittent stream that has been defined that runs through this property. It is not, it doesn't have water in it all the time. You get a heavy rain and it does fill and drains into 14 Mile Creek, which is down here. The wetland area is a 50-foot buffer on each side of that intermittent stream, and so that's considered the whole area. So there's about 4.5 acres of the 33.57 acres, which, or, you know, roughly 13.5% that make up that area. And that may cause some concern for you, but I'd like to point out, just as a reference point, this is Lake Murray Elementary School site. In this campus, there are over 25.5 acres of wetland area. And we have several other sites that are of similar condition. So a wetland doesn't mean that you can't develop a particular site. In our approach and strategy, we develop around wetlands. We don't mitigate if we can avoid it. Mitigation means you basically convert that wetland into, you destroy it and you convert it into regular dirt, if you will. And you have to, you know, pay to a mitigation bank and so forth. We don't do that process. We just avoid the wetland area. And you can see this is about 43% of that campus at Lake Murray Elementary School.
And I would say, as a previous parent there, we actually enjoyed walking that area, and it was an attraction to that school. So.
Yeah, the campus of the school, I'm not sure if Ms. Stanley is here tonight, but the school uses the campus, the wetland area. They actually have an area here in the front where they do some learning opportunities, and so it's a really good, they can make use of it, and for trails and things like that as well.
Well, and I would add to that, since this will be a middle school site, with outdoor education courses being so popular, I know Medical and Middle School uses their wetlands area quite extensively for those classes.
Right. Thank you. And so looking more closely at the site layout itself, and I'm going to kind of breeze through this because my next slide is a color version of this. But we have Old Cherokee Road. This is the neighborhood across the street. I think that road is Cherokee Pond Trail. So the road will align with that intersection there. We have, the school oriented to the front of the campus, or the front of the road there. I'm just going to go ahead and get to this slide because it renders a little bit better. You can kind of see the trees and everything. We're required through county zoning ordinances to maintain a buffer around our development. And so that you will see a buffer, and in some areas, even like in the back right here, where the buffer is thin, we may end up having to do some planning. We have to maintain a 6-foot opaque view around the perimeter of the, except for the front of the school. So you accomplish that through trees or fencing, but typically we try to do trees because it's more environmentally friendly. But we will have a large drive entrance here and significant stacking. This is similar to what you see on Beechwood Middle School's campus. And so that stacking loop is over 2,000 feet. It's working very well for Beechwood, keeping traffic off of Highway 378. And this is still an early site plan, so this road may actually curve around and create more stacking around this parking lot and then loop back in. But we have four crossings of the wetland, and these crossings will be completed the way in which we did River Bluff High School, crossings of those wetland areas where it's an arch culvert. You just span the wetland area with an arch culvert, and you do not impede on the wetland in any way. And this will be a pedestrian walk bridge here, and then drive bridges in these areas here. The This entrance here will be for bus service, and will feed to the back of the school, and there will be some staff parking in this area and here as well. But the bus loop will be back here, separating our bus riders from the entrance that the car riders use. And that is a thing that the Office of School Facilities, the State Department of Education, and SCDOT really push, because they try not to mix cars and buses together because of the danger of those big yellow buses and smaller cars moving around on a campus. And so that's something that we really can't accomplish on the current site. The buses and some of our parents use the same entrance point to get onto the campus. So you'll also notice that there is a full football field here. It is not designed for major competition or anything like that. There won't be any stands there, lights or anything like that. It'll be similar to our other middle school fields, but it does also have a track associated with it. And currently, the Lexington Middle School campus is not large enough to have that track capability. So we're excited about bringing that to the students there, which our other middle schools all have, or they all do have that capability. So with the exception of Lexington Middle School currently. So we're excited about that. You'll notice some of these blue areas. These are kind of placeholders for storm detention, and so that will be where we capture our storm water and slowly release it. The footprint, the red footprint, is the building. This is the same as Beechwood and Peely, and we've got our classroom wings over here, cafeteria in the back, main office in the front here, and then we have our gymnasium and little theater areas there. We are looking at also providing some connectivity to our neighbor there, Palmetto Hall. They have a number of students there, and that connectivity, we've done that at several of our neighborhood schools, or schools adjacent to neighborhoods, New Providence Elementary most recently, and Beechwood, and then Meadow Glen Elementary as well. Have a walking path connection to the school, and so we'll look to try to partner with Palmetto Hall to get some access for those students, so that they don't have to get in cars and move about on the highway. So we, as we mentioned in the option, I want to kind of go back just a second, and how we came about the price of this property. As I mentioned earlier, we did 2 appraisals of this property, and while I have this up, it's a good graphic here. The front section of this property, one of our appraisers classified as commercial property. And you notice as you ride down Old Cherokee here, there are a number of commercial businesses that are popping up in that area. And so that 6 acres roughly was appraised at about $130,000 an acre, while the rest of the residential area of the site was appraised at $48,300 an acre. If you average that together, that ends up being about $61,066. The second appraiser took a little bit different approach. These are both independent appraisals, and they just valued all of the property as residential, and they put a value on that of $47,000 an acre. And of course, these are all based on comparable sales in the area. And so, as you recall from the motion, we offered $47,500 per acre, which is on the very low end of the range between the 2 appraisals, from 61 and 47. So, and that was what was accepted on May 22nd when we did our Exhibit B ratification, which sets the price. So we have a number of safety features that we're excited about offering at this campus, and we have all of our students under one roof as we really try to get. And so, as I mentioned earlier, Lexington Middle School has a number of buildings, a number of access doors, things like that, that really make that a challenge. We also have all of the stacking room to get cars off the road. So we're excited about that. Dr. Little?
Can you compare that to Beechwood for just a moment, the stacking?
Yeah, and so what we'll end up with here, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have over 2,000 linear feet of stacking, which is similar to what we have at Beechwood Middle School, and that will accommodate a school of this size. Of course, the initial capacity we're looking at for 1,200 students, The core facilities will handle 1,500 students, and that's the prototype model. And that's to handle the size and the growth in the community long term. And so we designed these roadways to support that number of cars and buses on our roads. And so looking at this is a very small photo, but I can hopefully orient you. So you can see the school site. We have the main intersection here, Highway 6 going out towards the dam, and this is Old Cherokee running in front of the school. Cherokee Trail runs down this way. And so this is pulled from our traffic impact analysis. Significant work was done with the South Carolina Department of Transportation, and a traffic study was completed and reviewed extensively by them. And what happens is they do traffic counts and set an impact for us relocating the school there. And we looked at a number of intersections all across the Lexington area because really you're talking about changing traffic flow from going to the current Lexington Middle School site to this new site. And so we had to study a number of different intersections across the area, and you roll all that stuff up together, and then DOT comes out with recommendations of how to mitigate the traffic. And so what we are looking at doing is on Old Cherokee Road here, basically starting just below the car wash that's there with the intersection of Pilgrim Church. You may be aware that the county has some federal funds to improve that intersection under a safety grant, but it only goes for that intersection itself. There are no other road improvements slated for Old Cherokee Road, this section of it, on anybody's books. The town is doing some traffic work, but the county as well, but there's nobody, this is not on anyone's radar. So we're going to take it from that improvement down to where it's already a 4-lane section, and this road will end up being a 3-lane section all the way through. And what that means is you have a driving lane, you have a middle lane that serves for turn lanes, and then also it can be a median, that runs through the middle that's kind of, it's divided, it has the dashes, it's not a concrete median or anything like that. And then you have the opposite through lane as well. So the idea behind creating that 3-lane section in traffic language is it gives cars who are making traffic movements right or left a place to go so that through traffic can continue moving forward. So it enhances that traffic. So we'll do that for about a mile of this road. And then here at the Old Cherokee and Highway 6 intersection, we will be installing left turn signals. If you recall, coming down the big hill there at Highway 6 from Home Depot and all that, there are left turn signals now to take a left onto Old Cherokee, but we're going to be putting a left turn signal on the opposite side so that you can make a left to go on towards, a lot of people cut through Andrew Corley and go on, out to Corley Mill. So that will facilitate that left turn movement at that intersection. And then there'll be some potential improvements here with the way these roads are used, and that's still in development with DOT, but just minor changes, if anything, there. But we will have turn lanes in front of the school, acceleration lanes, and there'll also be a traffic signal installed here at the intersection of the school entrance exit, as well as the neighborhood across the street. So that will also facilitate movement in and out for the neighborhood and for the school during those key times of the day that traffic increases. The idea behind developing this site, if we develop a site like this, we're required to make these road improvements. These road improvements are used, 180 days out of the year, basically, and they get pretty heavy volume twice a day for that 180 days, but they're used the rest of the year by the community, and will serve a good purpose for traffic flow, year-round. And if this site was sold to a housing developer, in our experience, what we have seen in the community is the housing developer might have to put in a turn lane right in front of the neighborhood that they would create, and that's it. And they could come in here and put, a couple hundred homes on here and create a number of traffic problems, but not really have to do the mitigation that we are doing here. So And just kind of scaling back real quickly, just to orient you, again, the site is sitting here on Old Cherokee, and I just want to point out all of the little rectangles, if you want to call them that, all over this area. The current Lexington Middle School site is down here off the screen, and you can see this site is well situated among all of the housing developments in the area. And I should point out that this area right here is also recently been purchased by Essex Homes and is also being developed and will look like these little rectangles, actually probably more like these little rectangles here soon, because they're very densely populated homes. So very well situated position right here in the middle of the students and customers, parents that are going to use this campus. So with that, I know that was a long explanation. I'm happy to recap and answer any questions that you have at this time. Dr. Little, you had something?
Well, I was just going to say, and the idea there is that all those families and whatnot are not having to drive to one of the busiest intersections in town. They're going right here near their homes and then heading off to work.
That's correct.
Board, you've heard the presentation. We do have a motion and a second on the floor, and I'm going to open it up for the board to ask questions or make comments. So would anybody like to add anything?
Yes, I would just like to say in April of 2019, when we first began discussing this, I asked if there would be an opportunity for community feedback after the due diligence is complete. In an email to Dr. Little, I said, other than citizens' participation at board meetings, will there be community meetings, surveys, or a public hearing? And will the district be posting the due diligence reports on their website? And he said, our process allows for many opportunities for people to comment over a number of months. Once due diligence is complete for the LMS property, we are working on an informational session for the area. So I would like to make a motion that we table this until the next meeting, and that we have some kind of community meeting where we can get feedback from citizens. Because the board, actually, I'd also like to say, the board has not seen any of the due diligence related to this property.
Board, Ms. Garris has asked to make a motion. It will not go forward unless it has a second. Do I have a second to support her motion? Hearing none, the motion is declined. Any other discussion, board? I would like to say my children went to Lexington Middle School, and that was a few years ago, and it's a hard school to get in and out of. That is a super busy intersection, and that school is just jam-packed on that site. The thing that led me to support this, and I have heard from many of you, we have received phone calls, we've received multiple emails, we've received multiple comments online. And we've had several of you come and speak at citizens' participation. I see Mr. Calhoun back there. I know he has fielded questions at the school site. And I feel like we have heard from you. What leads me to support this decision is, first of all, there's not a lot of land available. Everybody wants to live near the highways. And the developers want to develop near the highways. And this schematic right here with all of those yellow squares, and also knowing that right across the street is how many homes is Essex proposing?
Several hundred. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but several hundred.
And then the piece of land that we have not been able to negotiate, that's a possibility of that being another neighborhood. So based on the fact that these are the children, every home, just about every square represents a child, that those parents will funnel out of those homes and go to that location. It's about as good as we can come up with at this present time that we can afford, and we're getting a really good price on this land. So I feel good about this decision.
And then again, Mr. Salters, remind us, the 2018 bond referendum passed, so we now have a mandate as dictated by our community to find a new location for Lexington Middle School and build. So again, if it's not this site, talk to us about, and we have been in dialogue. I mean, we've had this discussion. I've pushed you out here. But what other sites are there? Because again, we have 5 years, I believe, to satisfy that bond referendum.
Right. The goal is to have all of that work done within the 5-year period. And of course, we have a little bit of time after that, a year or two to expend those bond funds. But it's really not about waiting for 5 years. If we wait for 5 years, I would venture to say that these two sites will be gone. And a couple of the other sites that we've looked at that are left will be gone. I don't want to badmouth another person's property, but I can tell you that we've looked at a number of sites, all of the sites that are of any size in this area, and I can put them on basically one hand. And the location of those other sites are not conducive to traffic flow in the town of Lexington, and do not support the campus like this site does. And you might look at this one site right here, and it's been on the market for a number of years. I believe it's some 55.8 acres. And I would encourage you to go out to the county tax map and turn on the wetland layer and then have a conversation with me about it. You'll see why that site was not considered. But there, we've looked at everything out there. I would remind the board that we started a different property purchasing process in response to involvement and input in this process. And so up until this purchase, we would have brought this motion tonight to the board for the first time. You would have acted on it, and that would have been the first time the community would have ever known about us buying a piece of property. Back in December, we brought a motion to authorize us to look for property. And then back in March, we brought a motion to enter into an option agreement, which put this property out into the public. And so you've had 6 months worth of opportunity to receive input, as I know, Ms. Smith, you indicated you have, and we all have.
And I would like to add to that Ms. Hill and her communication team, they've put it on all of our sites that we have on Facebook, Twitter. They've all addressed that we were looking at this particular piece of property, and people, I've read the feedback there. We got a lot of feedback there from the community. Any other questions, board?
Well, I just want to add, I actually attended Lexington Middle School in that current location, not 70 years ago, but 40 years ago. And it's past time to relocate that facility. I mean, it's kind of, just looking at some of the pictures that Mr. Salters was showing us, the exposure that campus has to safety concerns, and with the imminent changes to the traffic and the roads around it, not only is it going to be a safety hazard, but it's going to be completely locked in with only 2 entrances and exits. Right. Seeing the proposed layout for the new campus, I mean, one of the things that our schools provide are kind of community centers for the neighborhoods that are around them. I know Beechwood has become quite an asset for the folks that live in Summer Lake, and Meadow Glen Middle School. There are families that walk and use the track and the sidewalks there. And I'm just so excited because there's really not any community spaces in that area as densely populated as it is. I really think that it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful addition to that area of Lexington, and it's going to provide the benefit of moving that school traffic and our students to a safer location. I'm very excited about it, and I really appreciate Mr. Salters and his entire team, the engineers that we use for all of the things that I don't understand, to bring this to us in a way that I can really visualize that school, and I'm very excited about it.
And Madam Chair, if I could just point out one additional thing. I will tell you, is through the course of our development and conversations over the last 6 months, we've had a number of community members in the neighborhoods around reach out to us, and we have a plan. Should the board take action tonight to move to close the property, we have a plan to go out to those communities and meet with those homeowners associations and talk with folks about the plan and what it means for them and how we can best be a good neighbor, and also meet with obviously the parents of the Lexington Middle School and the faculty there and talk with them about about what you've seen tonight and get that messaging out. So we're very excited, should you pass the motion tonight, to get started on that as early as tomorrow, actually.
Well,
That's
and
what
I'd
I
like to
was
add
one of
one
my
more thing.
questions, yeah.
Actually, a lot of the folks, the community members that have contacted me are very excited about this possibility because our schools were good neighbors. Our campuses are clean and well-kept, and they're safe, and they're good community assets. And many of the folks in that area would much rather see our beautiful campus there than another 400 houses, just because that's inevitable. If we don't move now, that property is that the seller is looking to sell it, and it will be another giant neighborhood.
And I don't want to foreshadow the future, but I've got a daughter in AP Economics, and she talks a lot about opportunity costs. So again, the opportunity costs of not relocating Lexington Middle is we can't deliver on some of our visions with respect to adult learning and other things here in Lexington County, which I think there's huge support by our business communities because it's another engine for economic growth to have more adult learning opportunities here in Lexington County. So,
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have another question. I know you said you had looked at several other properties. I know several of what you told us about. Did you look at any that had houses on them, or were you just looking at vacant properties?
No, we look at multiple parcels and parcels that have houses. We've done that before, where we've bought a tract of land. In fact, Centerville Elementary School had some homes on it. So we've done that before. We are not afraid to look at multiple tracts and put those together. Yes, definitely.
So was that done in this instance, though?
Yes, we've looked at every parcel in the Lexington
That information
Middle
was just
School
never given
attendance
to the
area.
board. I would have liked to known exactly what else was looked at. And I'm just going to say again, instead of having community meetings after we take a vote, I think it would be very beneficial if we went out and talked to people before. Because just posting things on the district website and talking about them in board meetings is not getting the word out.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Garris. Any other questions or comments? One thing I would like to add, just that we have heard from several key business owners and business people who are in the chamber and active in the community, and they're very excited about this school because they do see it as a success for the community. So just wanted to say that. Anything else, board? We will now take a vote, and let me remind you that Dr. Guyton has recused himself, so he will not be participating in this vote. So I tell you what, since it's been so long, Mr. Anderson, reread the motion one more time.
Okay. I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the purchase of 2 pieces of property per the agreement dated March 20th, 2019, with Teresa W. Betzel. The properties are known by Lexington County as TMS number 004-300-04-075 and TMS number 004-300-04-016. The consideration for this property is $1,594,575. This total equates to $47,500 per acre.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. And Ms. Green has already seconded this. So, board, all in favor of this motion as presented by Mr. Salters and his team, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. We have 5 in favor, 1 not in favor, and 1 recusal. So thank you. The motion does carry. And Mr. Calhoun, he said you're starting tomorrow. So you better get ready. Here we go. I know those parents at Lexington Middle School will be thrilled. At this time, it's time for 8.0, Honors and Achievements. Dr. Little, will you step down for Honors and Achievements? And while he's stepping down, I'm going to get my other book out. We celebrate successes of many kinds during the Honors and Achievements portion of our board meetings. We recognize the significant achievements of our students and staff, as well as the contributions of and partnerships with our business partners and community organizations. We feature all of tonight's honorees in our Proof Positive newsletter, this one right here, which was on the sign-in table as you came in the door. If you did not pick one up when you signed in tonight, please do that on your way out. It makes a great keepsake not only for our honorees, but also for your families. Audience, you should know that if you try to follow along in the newsletter, you might need to skip back and forth from page to page. They will not necessarily be recognized in the order that they appear in Proof Positive. We also ask that you please stay until we finish recognizing all of tonight's award recipients, as each award winner deserves our undivided attention. However, in order to accommodate our youngest honorees and their families, once we finish, we will give you a chance to leave before we resume the rest of the meeting. And I know everybody's just going to sit right here with us, aren't you? You're not going to leave, are you? Honorees, when you hear your names, go ahead and come on up and stand with Dr. Little, who is standing right there. And Dr. Little, are you ready? Let's go. Well, this is exciting. Our first honoree is not only a double gold medalist, but he is also the first student from Beechwood Middle receiving recognition during our board meeting. Oh.
Take them down. Take them down.
Okay. Let me introduce Mr. Nathan DeBose to you. Nathan won multiple medals at the AAU Junior Olympic Games for karate and brought home 2 gold medals, one in Kobudo and one in kumite, as well as a bronze medal in kata. A student of karate since the age of 6, Nathan also won bronze at the USA National Karate Championships. Nathan dreams of one day joining Team USA and competing at the Olympics. And I say, go Nathan. What do y'all say? That is so exciting to hear Beechwood Middle recognized for the first time. We begin our staff recognition by honoring employees receiving grant funding. We start with DonorsChoose.org grant recipients. This online giving platform allows teachers to post requests for special items they need to create learning opportunities for students. Recent funding recipients include Carolina Springs Elementary Stacy Blakely, Stacy here, Emily Cava, and Tyler Smith. Gilbert Elementary's Christy Singleton, come on up. Gilbert Primary's Marie Coates, Susie Davidson, and Whitney Umbarger. I hope I pronounced that right. Meadow Glen Elementary's Deborah Bumgarner and Michelle Rapp. Midway Elementary's Samantha Hammond. New Providence Elementary's Emily Berwick. Pleasant Hill Elementary's Jennifer Farmer. Red Bank Elementary's Ruth Hughes, Andrew Merchant, Liddy Parrish, and Kristen Tarza. And Saxagatha Elementary's Mary Seabauer. These teachers will outfit their classroom with supplies ranging from seed packets and storage carts to a toad habitat kit. Raise your hand if you're doing the toad. Ah, there's our toad lady. Let's congratulate all of these teachers. Yeah. Amber Morris, an instructor at the Center for Public Health and Advanced Medical Studies at White Knoll High, received a Let's Go 3.0 mini grant from Eat Smart Move More, South Carolina. Is she here? There she is. Ms. Morris, and member of the center's HOSA Medical Reserve Corps, used the $3,000 grant to support White Knoll High's second breakfast program. I believe she brought some of these members with her tonight. Here they come. Let me tell you what they did. They purchased the wrapping for the breakfast cart as well as social media advertisements. White Knoll High piloted the second breakfast program last year and now offers it to all White Knoll High students. The program offers students healthy food choices, whether they miss breakfast in the cafeteria or they just need a little more fuel to make it to lunch. We salute Ms. Morris and her students. Way to go, White Knoll. Carolina Springs Middle's Jennifer Simmons will connect with fellow theater educators in New York City, home to Broadway. Here she comes. She received a grant from BookTix to attend the Educational Theater Association National Conference. Only 7 educators nationwide received a grant for the 2019 conference. During the conference, she will experience continuing education opportunities, network with fellow educators, and discover new ideas to bring back to her school's drama program. In addition to teaching theater at Carolina Springs Middle, Miss Simmons directs the school's junior thespian troupe. Congratulations, Miss Simmons. Shannon Kennedy, Lori McKelvey, Jessica Robbins, and Mickey Summerall from Pleasant Hill Middle, and Deborah Adams and Jolene Walter from White Knoll Middle represent their schools tonight. Both schools received an Arts and Basic Curriculum Advancement Grant sponsored by the South Carolina Arts Commission. Pleasant Hill Middle received $11,430, while White Knoll Middle received $8,795. They plan to use their funding to support professional learning and to offer students additional artistic opportunities such as artists in residence. Thank you all for your continued commitment to the arts. Okay, this is one of our favorite times. We're going to conclude this evening with other grant recognitions introduced by the Lexington District 1 Educational Foundation's Executive Director, Julie Washburn, who will introduce our, as always, welcome guests from Michelin and WP Raw. Miss Julie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Although I'm very loud at times, I guess the mic would be better for everyone to be able to hear. But I appreciate your time. I'm excited to be here. This is a favorite part of my job in basically recognizing those teachers who've worked hard, not only in the classrooms, but kind of have gone above and beyond and written grants and been awarded grants. So, but before we start, I do want to talk a little bit about Michelin. The local Lexington plant is an amazing partner, not only to the Educational Foundation, but very supportive of the district through the foundation. They have done numerous things over the years, funded a middle school STEM lab. They've supported the foundation countless times with special events. They have mentors at Saxgotha and Red Bank Elementary schools. And then last year, we formed a new partnership, $30,000 worth over 3 years to sponsor 5 of our robotics teams in the district that are competing at VEX competition level. So we appreciate the continued generosity, the investment. The Michelin Golden Apple Teacher Grants that I'm going to let Claude Lightsey present in one moment. You need to know this has been a program and partnership that has existed for 15 years. More than $80,000 has been invested in our schools, resulting in 332 grants over 15 years. So it's a significant investment in Lexington District 1. We didn't start counting the students until about 8 years ago, because I did look that up just out of curiosity, and it's impacted more than 29,000 students through those grants. So it's wonderful when we form corporate partnerships and they result in amazing opportunities for our students. But I want to introduce Claude Lightsey, who is the HR personnel manager with the Michelin US 5 plant, and he also has the honor of being the Golden Apple administrator. And I work very closely a couple of times a year in administering the grants and helping him and getting the word out to all the schools and the teachers that this opportunity exists. So I'm going to pass it over to Claude.
Thank you, Julie. It's a pleasure to be here representing Michelin and recognizing what we're here tonight for 13 recipients for 11 grants tonight. These grants are valued for this term over $2,700 and impact over 2,000 students. So it's just a pleasure to be seeing the spirit of innovation at work here in the school district, and for us to be a part of it. It's just a real pleasure. If the recipients would come up when I call them, we'll recognize them. From Carolina Springs Elementary, Kizzy Gibson for a grant for visual arts. From Carolina Springs Elementary, Nicole Kriminger and Lindsay Smith for a reading challenge initiative. From Fort Pond Elementary, Lizzie Seisloff, for a Lego Robotics and Engineering Principles project. From Lake Murray Elementary, Sarah Livingston, with hands-on lessons in literature, math, and science. From the Parenting Center of Lexington 1, Marla Hamilton and Shanta Ziegler, for language development in virtual reality books. From Pelion High School, Lauren Garner, support of the Teacher Cadet Program. From Pelion Elementary, Jennifer Berry with a math skills project using Lego Math. From Red Bank Elementary, Tiffany West, a reading skills project. And from River Bluff High School, Amy Price, putting together a marine science field study. And finally, from Saxagatha Elementary, Megan Mosteller, with a physical science project to build micro-ecosystems. Thank you very much. Let's give them a big round of applause. I think I did miss one. I had two from River Bluff. I may have missed Jennifer Givens. Jennifer is a project with math skills using games to grow a mathematical mindset. Thank you. Didn't mean to overlook you. There was just so much to go around here.
She gets double.
Thank you.
Let's slide everybody down this way. We'll do 2 lines.
Thanks, Claude, and please convey our thanks to others at Michelin, too. We're fortunate to have Lisa Hayes on the Foundation's board, so she does see me more often, and I get to tell her thanks for all her time and energy, as well as the generous support. The next grant, though, opportunity I wanted to talk about is another amazing corporate partner, Walter P. Rawl & Sons. They are locally owned, started off as a family selling peaches, and it has evolved into a huge national company that really specializes in greens and veggies. Unfortunately, Susan Clifton is normally here, so instead y'all get stuck with me. She had a conflict tonight and asked me to pinch hit for her. But they have done a lot of different things for the foundation in support of the school district. They started these grants years ago in an effort to enhance students' knowledge of diet and nutrition through a garden or other live plant project. And they've kind of evolved in some amazing projects that the teachers have created for their students. In school gardens, there's a lot of ownership, a lot of different grade levels using these and learning from them. We also award these twice a year, $500 for a brand new garden or $250 to sustain a garden. So we give these fall and spring every year. In addition, the Raw family also has a scholarship. So any of you older students who may be interested, please keep an eye out in January. The foundation has the Raw Family Scholarship, which supports a student pursuing a degree in agriculture, as well as a number of other privately funded scholarships that families made possible in our community. But we are excited to be able to present these. So I'm going to call the recipients of the Fall School Garden Mini Grants. And we're going to start with Beechwood Middle School and Ann Peterson. Her project was Here We Grow Again. And I'll let give you that. Do you want to have the joy? Do you mind? Thank you. And then Meadow Glen Elementary's Caroline, oh, and Haley McCarta. I'm sorry, Haley. Where's Haley? Y'all got to tell us when we forget. It's good to have group partners. Meadow Glen Elementary, Caroline Cartons. Her project was a garden-inspired learning opportunity for the students. From Midway Elementary, we have Dory Burmas. It's Growing Minds, Growing Young Gardeners project. And that one, like Beechwood, are brand new gardens. New Providence Elementary, if Erica Schumpert will join us for the Little Green Thumbs Grow Up project. That's also for a new garden project. White Knoll Elementary's Giannini Hayes, the Giving Garden project. And finally, White Knoll High School's Sarah Fisher, Growing Careers project. So if we want to give a round of applause to all these applicants and winners. I know, girlfriend, they need a school. Okay, we want to thank you for taking the time to help us recognize the many honors and achievements of our students and staff and the many generous contributions of our local businesses, especially Michelin and WP Raw, and our community. We love sharing our good news with you. Honorees, when you leave the meeting, remember to head to your left and into the lobby where a member of the communications office will help you find your certificates. Now, just as I promised, you are welcome to stay, but you are also welcome to go. And thank you so much for coming tonight.
Okay, we'll keep on moving. We are now to 9.0 if you're following along on your agenda. This is citizens' participation, and the Lexington County School District 1 Board of Trustees provides a time for citizens' participation at each regular board meeting. There are a few guidelines, of course, and first, in order to speak, you must be a parent or legal guardian of a student in Lexington County School District 1 or a resident and taxpayer of the district. Each speaker only has 3 minutes to address the board. Third, you may comment on an agenda item, school operations, programs, policies, or other matters of concern. However, you may not speak about specific individuals, whether students or staff. There are ways to bring those situations like that to the board's attention. We want to give everyone who came here tonight a chance to speak. For that reason, board members will not reply to individual remarks. If someone makes the point or points you came to make before you, if you could just state that you agree with the previous speakers and not restate every point, that would also help us. We also ask you not to clap or make any comments either while an individual is speaking or after a speaker finishes, as that slows down the process. If you wanted to speak tonight, we ask you to fill out a card that gives us your name and address for our records. These cards were at the sign-in table. I do have 3. They look like this. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board besides the 3 people who have already submitted cards? If you would, we will be glad to give you a card. Anybody else? Okay, Ms. Ham right here has cards if anybody else wants to speak. As stated earlier, you should not expect us to reply to your remarks. Although we may ask you a question as a board, we will not take any action tonight in response to issues you raised during citizens' participation. Okay. So at this time, I'm going to call up Ms. Sheena Havens. She is going to talk about bed bugs. She lives at 1073 Bob Shumpert Road in Pelion, and she has children at Pelion Elementary and Pelion Middle. Ms. Havens? Yes, please, because we're recording you.
Okay, my name is Sheena Havens, and I have 5 kids that go to Lexington School District 1. And I feel the state as a whole has a problem with bed bugs, and I'm assuming y'all treat regularly for ants and roaches and things like that, and as bed bugs seems to become a bigger problem, I feel like that maybe we should implement something like that in addition to what we already have. So that's my big concern.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Havens. We'll now move on to Patricia Wheat. She is also going to talk about bed bugs, and she lives at, I need a street address.
940 Water Tank, but there's no bell receptacle there.
No, but I still need it. What is it?
940 Water Tank.
940 Water Tank?
Water Tank.
Water
yeah.
Tank, okay. And that's in Pelion as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, anyway, this is Patricia Wheat. She lives at 940 Water Tank Road in Pelion, South Carolina, and she has children at Pelion Elementary and Pelion High School. Ms. Wheat?
Actually, I have 9 children, grandchildren
Okay,
that attend.
that's fine.
And I have 9 children that attend in Lexington 1 schools. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own experience. I purchased a comforter at Walmart, marked down, and I took it home and I put it in the corner of the room, waiting for the painter to come paint the room before we put out the new linens and so forth. And by the time the painter got there, we had a bed bug infestation in that room. DHEC is derelict in their duty, at minimum, to not have a policy about bed bugs. The reason I bring that up is because by the school district not addressing bed bugs, and we have bed bugs in most of the schools in the district, as I've talked to parents and staff at schools in the district. The cost to rid my home of bed bugs was $3,500. I brought in home pest control. Now, I had a little bit extra expense because I had to have a grand piano moved out of the house because it can't stand the heat. The only way to rid your home of bed bugs effectively is to heat the building to 140 degrees minimum for a minimum of 24 hours. So obviously a grand piano can't deal with that kind of heat. So what we have, though, is when the kids come home, or when they come to my house after school,
They literally have to change outside or in another building before they can come into my house. Because as children are going in and out of the building, out of the school, they're dragging bed bugs to their homes. People may not know it yet, but there are bed bugs in our homes now because the schools are not being treated.
The schools are being treated, but go ahead.
Not effectively. You know, when we have, I believe it's 6 letters already home from Pillion Elementary, and other parents in other schools are telling me they're getting letters home, and some are saying, we don't get letters home, but we know that there's bed bugs there. It's a problem. The district needs a policy. If kids are in an infested home and the home is not being treated, then they should not be allowed back into school. Because I don't think the average family in Lexington 1 can suffer a $2,000 to $3,500 blow because their kids dragging bed bugs home. The other thing is that when the kids are going in and out of the school and they're riding on the buses together, they're bringing those home, they're taking them back to school. They're bringing them home, they're taking them back to school. We're creating a major health crisis.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wheat. Okay, now I'd like to call on Elisa Lucas. She lives at 336 Water Tank Road, and she has children at Pillion Elementary and Pillion High School. Elisa? Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight I would like to address the issue of bed bugs in schools across the district. There are several schools across our district that have battled this issue, to include Gilbert, Carolina Springs, Pillion, and Red Bank. I'm sure there are other schools with this issue as well, but I'm waiting on my FOIA request to be filled for these numbers. In your packets, you will see several letters that have been sent home this calendar year. These are not all the letters, just the ones I have been able to obtain so far. Many of those letters were sent home during the 2018-19 school year. There was plenty of time to take preventative measures over the school, but seeing as how 2 bed bug letters were sent home the first day of school, it would appear that no measures were taken. I've heard of other schools starting off the school year bagging items because it was such an ongoing issue last year. I also have something I would like to play for you regarding the issue at PES.
204, 126, 301, 303, and 404.
Okay, and what was the reason those rooms needed treatment?
Bed bug.
There was bed bugs in there? Okay.
Yet here you are publishing articles claiming it's just a rumor. It's time to stop covering up and start addressing the issue. Typical feeding time for bed bugs is between 2 to 5 a.m., but they also feed during the day. In your packets, you have pictures of bed bug bites. These pictures have been presented to the principal of that school, yet the school was not treated. How do you expect students to focus on learning when they're being eaten up by bed bugs? Bed bug bites can cause many health side effects. Allergic reactions to bed bugs include hives, panting, and even anaphylaxis. Other side effects include anxiety and insomnia. A study has proven that bed bugs can transmit a parasite that causes Chagas disease. These parasites hide in the heart and digestive muscles. These side effects are a complete distraction when it comes to a student's ability to learn. Bed bugs pose many health risks physically and mentally to our children in schools. We need to address this issue with policy and stop letting people just brush it off as rumor. I've also included your packets information on recommended treatment by licensed exterminators, portions of an existing policy in Greenwood schools, and other preventative measures that can be taken to help limit the spread of the bugs. Those policies include treatment of rooms with specified chemicals, bagging of items in the classroom and the school bus. Currently, bags are removed from students before students get on the bus. Notifying all parents when there is a bed bug in school. Inspection of the classroom by a licensed professional within 24 hours of finding a bed bug. Making resources for treatment more readily available to parents throughout the district. This is an issue in schools across this district that will continue to spread if not properly addressed now. All we are asking for is a policy to help minimize the spread and proper treatment of the schools. If you are not willing to implement this policy, then I challenge each of you to go sit for a day in the classrooms where bed bugs have been found, as you expect our students and teachers to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lucas.
I have a question. That recording you played, who was that?
That was Christy, the office manager at the original Bugman.
And were those room numbers?
Yes, those were the room numbers that were diagnosed or listed for treatment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Item 10.0 are action items, and the first one is 10.1, student travel request. Do I hear a, well, before I do that, Ms. Garris has asked to recuse herself on this vote because she has a child participating in one of these trips, so she is going to recuse herself, and I do have that for the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve 44 student travel requests as presented? Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. Do I have a second?
That's second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Dr. Talley, you want to comment on all of these trips?
Sure. It is 44 trips we're asking for approval this year. You'll notice that several of those trips are taking place in the spring or the summer, and they're international trips. And principals and teachers have brought those forward early because they are having fundraising to help forward those trips. You'll also notice that some of these trips are pretty amazing opportunities for our young people. Some are competition trips. Some are singing or performing at national sites. So real proud of our students and the opportunities they have. Thank you.
Okay, board. You've heard the explanation for the 44 student travel request. Are there any questions or comments regarding any of the trips?
I just want to make a comment. I was struck by how many requests were listed, and then I started kind of digging down into it, and I've made this comment pretty regularly, but I think our student travel is a really good snapshot of the opportunities the students in Lexington 1 have. I mean, the list that we have here, you've got students that are taking trips for STEM, for CATE skills competitions, DECA, HOSA, FFA, wrestling, tennis, dance, band, language immersion, Model UN, and even a group going to New York to study financial markets. And so it's pretty impressive when you look at this list and really kind of dig into what our students are having the opportunity to do. You realize, and it's across all of our schools too. And I'm just so proud of the opportunities that our students have to get outside of the classroom and learn things in the real world.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Green. Any other questions or comments, board? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of the 44 student travel request as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's 6 in favor, no nays, and 1 recusal. So at this time, we're going to go to 11.0, which is Superintendent Dr. Little's update. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Little.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. While we are if Mr. Ellisor, if you will go ahead and start making your way up. One of the things that we had on the agenda, or really on the calendar, to do a security update in October. But just with our start of the school year, I wanted to make sure we went ahead and had a conversation about safety and emergency services and talk about some of the ways that we're keeping our kids safe. And so I invited Mr. Chris Ellisor to meet with us today. He's our director of our safety and security and a former police officer. So thank you again for your service. I know we always celebrate that as well. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ellisor.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. I'm going to go through a couple slides here real quick. I tend to talk pretty fast, so you guys, if you have any questions, just stop me. Right off the bat, last year, we came out the gate and we put in a new safety tip line for our students. You know, the Secret Service has done studies that show that during an active attack event or a violence event, around 80% of the time the student interacts with someone and tells them that plan or tells them, hey, I'm going to do this. So we needed a way for students to easily get to us and tell us, hey, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing. Through the Safe Schools alert system, we're able to receive a text. They can go online through the website. They can send an email or they can make a phone call. You see the phone number at the bottom of the PowerPoint there, and also on the back of every student's ID is the phone number. So they have a way to text that number. I say text because that's how students communicate, right? I mean, I have students at home. Fortunately, one of them has a cell phone, but that's how she communicates. We no longer pick up a phone and dial a number and talk to someone. We've seen, this is the outcome of last year, all right? So those tips go in, whatever means they decide, and they go to an email. And that email list is we watch that email list, myself, Sean Spivey, Jeff Salters, and Matt Warren. We kind of have it broken up to where I go to bed kind of late. Some of these guys get up pretty early to go run and exercise. I don't want to do all that stuff. So I'm happy to go to bed late and monitor that right before we go to bed. We'll check our emails. When we wake up in the morning, we'll check our emails. And what we found is this is the outcome of last year. So 34% of those are during business hours, means those tips are coming in from about that 8 to 4:30 mark. From 4:30 on till 8 o'clock the next morning, 8 o'clock the next morning, over 65% of those tips are coming in. All right, now on average, about 40% of those at nighttime are involving a law enforcement interaction. So what that means is me seeing the tip, Sean seeing the tip, us calling law enforcement saying, hey, here's what we know, can you help us? And they'll go out to that door, knock on that door, and intervene with that parent or that student to tell them, hey, this is what we know right now, and this is what we're looking into. Currently this year, we have 26 tips received. 2 of those have involved law enforcement interaction. All right?
May I jump in about that? I would like to add, we are very thankful for our partnerships with law enforcement, both at the town level and the county level. Chief Green and Sheriff Kuhn, for example, they assist us. We try to make this a seamless process, and one of the powerful things I think about our security that I'd like to point out is when someone comes after hours, and if it involves something to do with the police, that police officer is knocking on the door that night. And there's very little lag time. I don't want to say there's no lag time, but there's very little lag time with how that happens. And again, I want to argue that I really look at us as the model for how school districts and police and the law enforcement agencies work together. Chief Green has made that, has said that publicly. And that partnership is incredibly powerful. And again, I hate to interrupt the presentation, but that was something that really needs to be talked about, because I think that's a real strength of our process.
And it helps us a great deal, because I can't wait till the next morning to talk to students. I don't want students to get onto a bus knowing that someone may have said something. I've got to intervene now, and let's get to the bottom of it. At least get it started to where we can talk to the parent and have the parent bring the student in, the next morning to the administration. Don't forget about PD. Chief Kreider, they are on the same boat as all the rest of them. So, our school resource officers, so we have full-time resource officers in all of our schools at this time. Our elementary schools, they share an officer 4 hours apiece. We found out yesterday that the state has come down with 4 positions. They're giving us funding for 4 full-time positions. We don't quite know what that means yet. We're working through that with the Sheriff's Department, because coming from law enforcement, I didn't sign up as a law enforcement officer to go and sit in an elementary school. So that's a challenge. Right. So finding those people, those are unique folks. So we're working through that with them, but we should be able to add 4 additional full-time officers to our elementary school level, which there's some math that has to be done there, but it'll be a change here soon.
And that's a struggle across the entire state.
Yes.
At several school board meetings, we attended a big safety conference last spring, and it is really hard to find school resource officers across the state, because it takes a special person. No
doubt. Most people get into law enforcement to sling handcuffs, and catch bad guys. So, our front entrance updates, what we're doing, you'll see coming into schools, you'll see a camera outside now, several of them are Vigilon. This is a process that we're rolling out right now, all right? So bear with us. Several schools have this currently. I don't know what installation we're on right now. I know Midway has it. I know Deerfield has it. Lake Murray has it right now. I just got the signs in 2 days ago, so they haven't gone up yet, but that's what our signs will look like. And the idea is that we will secure our front entrances. You will not be able to walk into a school, grab a door, and go right in without pressing that button and talking through a camera and telling them why you are here. What's the purpose of your visit? Mainly, it's just a delay so the person in the office can see who's coming in. That's the idea. I sat in some of the high schools last year, and I'm amazed at what happens at lunchtime with the parents coming in and dropping off food. There's so much movement there that it's hard for a person to sit there and watch that movement when they're dealing with other things. So this will help them in that front office space, help to secure our front entrances. There's also another camera behind them, so you're getting 2 camera views. You don't see that camera here, so they can see 360 around that person. Some of the new law changes, 59, 63, 910, the safety and security drills. I'm going to talk about that one. The 16, 17, 425 is the school threats, and we'll talk through that one. 53, 63, 910, safety and security drills. So what they've said from the state is that we will now, by law, do 2 lockout drills, 2 lockdown drills, 2 tornado drills, 2 earthquake drills. We will continue to do our 10 fire drills, so our 1 fire drill a month, all right? They didn't take those away or let us mix those in. We tried to get to there. The other thing they said was that all employees will be trained in active shooter training. So SLED came down and said, hey, we are going to teach you craze. A handful of us, myself, Jeff, and Sean, went through, got certified in the craze, as a craze instructor. So we are making our rounds now at schools with all staff and training them in civilian response to active shooter events. It's called craze. Law enforcement can do this. We're just very fortunate to be let into that door is what I would say. I mean, relationships get you there. So that is new to this state. They are working through how that would look. But right now, I mean, we've done, I think, 22 schools at this point, plus all substitute trainings. And we just finished here this morning with our folks here in this office. 16, 17, 425, the school threats. I put this in there. It came into play last May. We're seeing this now being charged with students. It is unlawful for a student or of a school or college in this state to make threats to take the life of or to inflict bodily harm upon another by using any form of communication whatsoever. The law is very clear, okay? So we're seeing that being charged. You saw that locally in the news. I put this up there just to make everybody familiar with it. I know Dr. Little, we sent a letter out, I think August 28th, and we've shown a sharp decline in those incidents now. So that's good. I think it worked. Yes, sir.
Do we reference that in our student policy manual yet? Have we?
Not yet.
Okay, that may be good. As we roll out next academic year.
Gotcha. And I'm going to let Tracy take this, talking about our threat assessment teams.
So this past year, the State Department of Education released a new threat assessment guide and began to train district personnel from across the state, which is still ongoing. So they're right now developing some of the components that go with the guide. Not everything's in place yet. They're still working on that component. We have at least 7 of our district personnel that have gone to the training, attended it, and also developing a model board policy to go along with it. So what we've done right now is we have a task force developed. We're gathering key information from our key stakeholders, principals, psychologists, counselors, to how to implement it and what training is required. Our Lexington County Community Health School-Based Supervisor will be part of that task force, or are part of the task force, because our therapists can help us in this aspect. So as we begin to get this in place and develop more, we'll have more to you, but that's what's started right now. I just wanted to bring you up to date based on what the State Department's done.
That's what I have. Any questions? Good. Yep.
When we market the tip line, if you will, to our students, is it strictly around school-based threats, or say there's a kid at home, he's in the middle of a domestic violence, or he's in the middle of drugs or something like that? Do we market it in such a way that would allow a student to feel, I guess, somewhat comfortable about making, or even knowing that that's a possibility?
Yes, and so there are posters throughout all the campuses, and they define on them, drugs, weapons, suicide, and I can state that we've had 2, which were suicidal thoughts or ideations that led to law enforcement going to the door and intervening and getting that person help. So yes, we do.
Good. And the second question I would have would be, as we've kind of seen this unfold sort of early in the year, one of the thoughts I had was, how do we go about vetting potentially a false accusation? I mean, the worst thing you would hate to see happen is that one child have another dispute with another student and calling a tip to say this student said that, and then it becomes
I think there's a couple schools in Atlanta going through that right now. They had
Sure.
some false accusations.
Sure, and we've had tips that were not good tips. How about that? You got to investigate them. You can't just take the word of the tip. So it falls back to going to the school, talking to the students, and working an investigation either through administration or on the night of with law enforcement going house to house talking to other folks.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So there is a vetting process, if you will, through. I'm sure there is, but
Yes.
it's fairly extensive.
Yes, we don't just take a tip and say, oh, they did it, you know, let's go get them. I mean, definitely, you have to vet that.
But I think the root of that investigation is, did you say that or not? Did you communicate?
Very much so.
Not, did you have the intent to do it? It's, did you, make the threat?
Sure.
And I think that's part of what we have to continue to educate around. So.
I think, with the things we're seeing at nighttime, when a law enforcement officer shows up at your house at 2 in the morning and wakes mom and dad up, you're going to be pretty honest and say, yes, I did, or no, I didn't. And that's what we've experienced for the most part, is that, yeah, I said it, I didn't mean it. I was just joking. And so that's what, law enforcement is dealing with now is it is just a joke, but you can't take that word on it. You've got to go check it out and make sure. So that's a lot of what we deal with.
And I do think there is some confusion with some of our community members. I think they think the schools own it once the accusation's made or the threat is made. But at that, that's really moved straight over to law enforcement.
It's a crime
right?
at that point. I mean, the law is very clear. You cannot say those things or do those things.
Okay.
So it goes into their hands, definitely.
Okay. Board, any other questions or comments? Well, I personally would like to thank you and your staff and our teachers and everybody in our schools for making them so safe and secure. That is one thing that it's one of our basic tenets for our children to be safe and secure, and we appreciate all you do to make that happen. Mr. Salters?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to take the opportunity, since Mr. Elsor's standing here, to compliment him and Mr. Spivey on the hard work, because that 65% that you saw there is mostly those two guys staying up late at night. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our partnership with Student Services. Mr. Caldwell and his team are involved in those late night conversations as well. We have a text group that we communicate and keep each other up to date, because a lot of times there may be a situation where there's not a crime committed and law enforcement isn't going to be involved, and it turns over to a student services matter. So we have a great working relationship as a team. Communications gets involved when there is a threat, and Mary Beth's, I'd like to say Mary Beth's team, but Mary Beth is usually on go to communicate that out. So it really takes a team effort, and I just appreciate everybody's support doing that. But we're very fortunate to have two former law enforcement officers working for us who really understand the law and know how this stuff works. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was getting ready to point that out. You'll notice that Mr. Pender also stood up to talk about safety. So if we want our schools to be safe, it's not just about law enforcement and punishment. It's about counseling. It's about getting to the root cause of the issues, and it's about helping students make better decisions. It's not just about the 2 a.m. knock on the door. That's an aspect of it, but that's not really how we want to keep our schools safe. That's really going to take a much larger effort, and that's why the counselors are involved in helping us craft those ideas. And, of course, our mental wellness teams that we have in place as we continue to look for students who are showing some red flags and trying to provide them assistance and make sure that they are taking advantage of all what we have to offer. And so those are things that are happening in our schools, because safety is really everybody's concern. It's not just safety and security for two people. It's really all of our concerns. And so thank you, Mr. Pender, as well. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Salters. Thank you, Mr. Ellisor.
And we'd also like to thank Sheriff Kuhn, Chief Green, and their teams, those SROs, and Pillion Police Department, because we just couldn't do it without that partnership. And the SROs are so nice when you walk into schools and they know the kids' names. It's just been a wonderful partnership. So
it's great. All right, so 11.2 is actually is a little different for tonight. It's a board members report. Ms. Green, are you tackling this one?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. So at the end of August, beginning of September, many of us attended the School Board Association's school law training in Charleston. And this training at the beginning of every school year is very important, because what it does is it gets school board members up to speed on state and federal laws that maybe took effect over the summer. A lot of that stuff tends to take effect in June, July, August, and how it will impact our schools and the functioning of our districts. And it's jam-packed. It's like 8 to 5 on Saturday and 8 to noon on Sunday, just like information overload. But it's incredibly helpful and beneficial because there are lots of things that happen in our state legislature and in Congress, and actually administratively, sometimes outside of the legislative process, especially with the current administration. There's a lot of administrative changes, how things are implemented, things that are taken off the table or implemented in a different manner. And it's so important for us to know how that affects our students and our schools. Like, for example, I attended one session about some changes to IDEA, and there's some pretty significant changes in how things are going to be reported and funded.
And remind us what IDEA is.
The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's, I think that, yes. That's one acronym that I do know. And then on Sunday morning, it's always kind of the to me, the pinnacle of the training. We had a very, very deep presentation from Dr. Derek Black, who is a professor at the University of South Carolina Law School, who knows a lot about education policy in South Carolina, very deep, just talking about the landscape with school funding and vouchers and policy. And one of the things that he mentioned that I thought was such a good takeaway from me was all of the education, the big education bill that was introduced in January, and all the conversations around it. He made the point, and I had not thought about it like this, that education bill was not motivated by concerns about our education system. That's not what gave it traction, and it wasn't motivated about concerns about our students. It was actually pushed by the business community. And so that's who our legislature listens to, is the business community, not the educators. And I think that maybe that is changing a little bit with some of the advocacy that's happening. But that was a very interesting presentation. And then that was followed up by a panel discussion that included our own Lexington County Shane Massey and Senator Shane Massey and Wendy Brawley, who is a representative from Richland County, who used to be a Richland 1 school board member, and Rita Allison, who is a representative from Spartanburg, who is the chair of the House Education Committee. And they were just talking about reflecting on the first half of the session, which was last spring, and then kind of expectations for the second part of the session, and it was interesting. They all admitted that it was very important to them to get something done for education in South Carolina, but they're also all up for re-election this year. And so they kind of tempered expectations with that statement. But I think maybe, did anybody else want to talk about what some of their takeaways?
I think I had 3 key takeaways. I mean, there was tons, and I took lots of notes, but and Anne Marie addressed this a couple months ago, is the census that's coming out. It's going to be really important for public schools because that's how our funds are going to be allocated. So when it comes time for the census, we just really have to rally the community and make them understand how important that every person in their household is counted. And that's really important in a fast-growing community like ours, where we need every dollar we can get. We also talked a good bit about the privacy regulations that, in regard to students and staff. There's so many privacy issues regarding students, and it's kind of interesting how it moves over to staff too, so we learned a lot about that. And then finally, I attended a session on drugs in the schools and opioid addiction, and talking about CBD, how it's not regulated. And I think if you were here a couple months ago, you heard our board have a very lengthy discussion about vaping. All of that is just, it's almost a moving target, and it's hard for us to know. But they talked about that and how they're trying to get their arms around it. And I did not realize this, that all of our SROs carry Narcan. And if someone, God forbid, were to have a fallout due to some kind of opioid problem, all of our SROs are ready on site to help that person. So it's just interesting. it kind of makes you sad, actually, some of the things that we worry about and how far from finance to census to drugs to making sure we treat our students and our staff fairly. So I thought it was a great session.
To kind of echo the opioid, the main takeaway slide from that was the age range where we see opioid abuse is 30 to 60. Well, if you think about who has children, what age range,
Yeah.
it's 30 to 60. And so the question always comes, well, where are the kids getting it from? Well, they're getting it from the parents at the end of the day. And so it gives you a clear indication of how access kind of opens up. I will say this, and there was actually a follow-up to this. Dr. Lill and myself were sitting in on that session, and I'd actually challenged the speaker. She was from DHEC, correct?
Yeah, or
I
the
think she
governor's
was.
office or,
Yeah,
or
something
something.
like that.
Representing
yeah.
the governor's office.
She came up to me after a week later at a football game, and I had challenged her to, I hear you about opioid. I do not want to dismay or underscore the significance or importance of the opioid crisis, but we're running headlong into the vaping crisis right now. We don't want to look back on this 10 years from now and say, man, I wish we'd have gotten out here 10 years ago like we did with opioids. And I say that as a provider because, the MDs were the first ones that had to change their behavior. And then it was a trickle-down effect from there. And so I kind of challenged her to say, hey, we need to get in front of this and we need to do it quick. And she actually came up to me at the football game and said, well, I talked with some people at the governor's office and we're working towards that. And it's like, well, okay. So I say that to say this stuff is proving true. I mean, just with the other day with the FDA and what you've seen, people are dying across this nation from vaping-related disease, and we don't know why. We think we understand. We think we know what chemical may be doing this, but we don't know yet. And so that in and of itself tells you that we have significant problems ahead of us, and we don't even know what questions to ask yet. They are working towards it, but I think to your point, it's going to be a moving target. It's going to be a bit slow in the process. The other takeaway was the first time I'd heard Act 388 addressed by legislators, and saying that we have a broken school finance system here in South Carolina, and we recognize that. We don't know how to change it, but we're working through it. So it actually is starting to get a little bit of attention, a little bit of legs to it. So that was encouraging to see as well, especially for a fast-growing district like ourselves.
Anybody else?
All right. This, of course, was the annual law conference, and we certainly live in a litigious society these days, if not a gotcha society. Everything from the news media on down, everybody's in gotcha mode. But there were a lot of things that were discussed. I attended sessions on FOIA, transporting students safely. What else was here? The effective policies and practices in the schoolhouse to keep boards out of the courtroom. But more importantly, I think the thing that I take away from these conferences the most is the ability to meet with other school board members from across the state. We share war stories, we share information, and that's something that you just can't buy. There's no training to be a board member. You get it from reading, from sharing stories, and attending conferences like this. And this one is absolutely one of my favorite ones. It's very good. The panel discussion with Shane Massey and Rita Allison and those was very, very informative, and I enjoyed every bit about it.
Anybody else? Tim,
All right.
did you want to say anything?
Anybody
Okay.
else?
Great. Well, I want to thank Ms. Green. She is our legislative and advocacy representative. I'm not even sure she knew she had a title. But we've asked her to sort of round us up and keep us on track with that. And it is so important because the laws are changing so frequently, and the funding and what's coming down from the state level. So I just want to thank her for helping corral that and work with our delegation and keeping us on track for that. So thank you, Ms. Green. At this time, I'm going to turn it back to Greg.
Well, thank you very much. So we, again, have a operations report that always seems to come about the 9 o'clock hour, but wanted to give Mr. Salters an opportunity to show off some of the good work that's being done across our campuses.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Little, members of the board. I'll be brief this evening. Starting out at Centerville Elementary School, you can see the school is slated to open in August of next year. You can see the school actually taking shape now. This is our prototype plan that we've used dating back to Rocky Creek Elementary School. It's considered the X plan, if you will. So we've got foundations going on and some foundation block in some of these areas. We've got some pads poured here and ready to really start seeing some walls go up. We've got some initial parking lot spaces graveled in for lay down. But really some good progress going on at Centerville. And you can kind of really see this is the cafeteria area. That's actually the stage there in the cafeteria. Kitchen area is back over here, loading dock. So you can see that really kind of starting to take shape there on the site. And we have a retention pond there that's meeting its needs. It is retaining the storm water, slowly releasing it. And doing what it's designed to do. We had a nice rainfall that day.
It's kind of a nice comparison of the swimming pool to the retention pond.
Yeah, the treated water and untreated water. But it is doing its job, and the rain in this area with the sand really doesn't impact the construction like it did over at Beechwood just down the road. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic that we have there. So moving on. Yes, sir.
And I was going to say, that looks like a construction dream job because it looks like a big sand plot that they really, so
Yeah.
timeline-wise, we're on time?
Timeline, we're tracking. We're in good shape to open in August. Yes,
Right.
sir. New Peoria Middle School, another construction dream job. Site-wise, this is a little bit bigger sandbox than Centerville. And you actually see retention ponds here. We have a series of ponds that line the back here, and so water will actually release here and then spill over into these ponds. But the site's really taking shape now. They're just really doing a great job out there. This is a HG Reynolds project. We have walls up on the first floor. In fact, they're starting to set steel, for the second floor out here on this first wing. And then our second classroom wing walls are coming up, and they've poured this third classroom wing. Again, the prototype plan. You saw the rendering earlier in the presentation, and so here's a kind of a lower angle shot of this, and you can really see the classroom wings coming up. There's the main office area here.
And in the background, what's that in the background?
Okay, so back here you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
This is the Lexington County Recreation Commission. These are ball fields.
Okay.
So great proximity. Our land is actually contiguous. We're actually pulling power from the power distributions coming from that way. And so we'll have some nice connectivity to those ball fields. Of course, we'll have a track and a football practice field on that campus, but they'll have some nice connectivity as well. Just recapping at Lexington High School and the Tech Center, we got some final photos of the parking lots, and just wanted to kind of highlight that project. That was much needed repairs that were done as part of the referendum.
It's amazing how much a difference the parking lot has made on that facility.
Right, it really gives a fresh look to the campus. You're looking at Lexington High School there. We also improved the roof, and so this roof doesn't have the final cap sheet on yet, but you can see a number of new HVAC units. Very excited about that as well. That makes a huge difference. And just for perspective, really quickly, you can see this is the walkway. That's what the roof over here looked like before it was replaced. So really makes a difference to get that new roof on. And just an aerial shot of kind of the tech center is over here in the background, but all of the parking and drive access areas around the campus resurfaced through this process. So we're very excited about that. As we said, made a huge difference there. And those are the pictures I have for you tonight. We got a number of projects in design and we're working through, and you can keep up with the progress as always here on the building plan website. Thanks to our communications department for working with us to keep that going. So, any questions?
Can you give them just a brief update on some of the major renovations at Gilbert High School and White Knoll High School? Those are our two biggest non-new buildings.
Sure. We have, we're in design on both of those projects. White Knoll High School, if you recall, has a 32 classroom addition and also a performing arts center. And we're working with McMillan Paz and Smith on that. And that project is in design, and we really hope to finalize that design over the next couple of months and get started, hopefully in the spring, maybe the summer, depending on the timing of the phasing and everything. But the classroom addition will go off the front left of the campus, and the performing arts theater is going to be in the back near the existing little theater, or it might end up down by the band room on the end there. So, and that'll be a 1,000-seat theater comparable to the two low packs we have at River Bluff and Lexington. At Gilbert, we are in design there as well. Performing Arts Center will be added there, and that'll be about an 800-seat performing arts theater. And that'll go off the end of the building where the gymnasium is, between the gymnasium and the softball area, if you will. And also a weight room and wrestling room are part of that that renovation. So really excited about that. Again, similar timeline for that project.
But that also highlights the importance of the prototyping.
That's right.
Because from the time we've been working on this, we're still not yet into building.
That's right.
So the prototyping has allowed us to really break ground and get going.
Yeah, I mean, you would not see these two schools near. I mean, we wouldn't have broken ground yet had we not used a prototype plan. So it does make a big difference for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, that concludes my report, but if you don't mind, I'm going to continue on with 12.0, if that's okay.
That would be great. And I did have one question for you guys. What is our student count that we're looking at? I know we probably don't have final numbers yet. Should we wait till next month to ask that question?
I would wait.
Yes.
Because that number is still shaking out.
Okay, great.
At 12.0, we have a first reading. I just wanted to turn it over to Dr. Talley and her presentation regarding policy IKA-R.
Thank you, Dr. Little, and members of the board. Tonight I am presenting to you for first reading amended policy IKA-R, grading assessment systems. On May 14th, the State Board of Education made changes, additions and deletions to the uniform grading policy. And the revisions were to clarify, this is about the third or fourth iteration of the policy. And so they were to help clarify and more explicitly communicate to our students and our parents and our counselors what the grading policy is. I will tell you that this is a complex policy. I will also share with you that we do not have much wiggle room in the policy. This is our encyclopedia. It's Mr. Pender and Mr. Poole have this on their desk every day. And you see the tabs. They've made me a notebook. And they constantly refer to it when they're working with school counselors and with administrators because we have to abide by the policy. Having said that, I'd like to point out to you, so for your consideration over the next month as you're looking at the changes in the policy, I want to point out a few things, and I'm going to refer to the text in red, and I too will try to be brief. If you follow along with me, first thing I want to point out to you is the conversion chart. You'll notice that on page 2 of your policy. You'll notice there's red text under the conversion chart. This is new, and it gives additional information and more explicit information regarding how you compute grades. So I wanted to point that out to you. You'd want to look at that. Also, you'll notice that this also offers information about credit recovery courses. So you'll want to look very carefully at that.
And Dr. Talley, so that is determined at the state level? I mean, when you say we have very little wiggle room, again, that's not for discussion for us to comply.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. If you will look under the section for honors courses, I'd like to draw your attention to that. This section explains the criteria that a local district uses to determine that a course is an honors course, so that criteria is there for you. I do want to point out in this section there is new language. If you look at the bottom of sort of the bottom of page 4, there is new language there about receiving a credit for PE 1. Band now can be substituted for that, and ROTC also can be substituted for that, and we've been doing that for a long time. That part's not new, but the marching band is new, and I know many of y'all called me last year and asked me, when is that going to happen? When is that going to happen? What's happening now? Because we will implement these changes this school year. I'd also point out to you the section on transfer courses. This is new, and it speaks to students who transfer into our school system from homeschool, from private school, from non-accredited schools, out-of-state public schools. So you want to be sure and read that as well. Our district is certainly interested in dual credit courses. There's a section there that speaks to dual credit. You'll want to look at that. Finally, I want to point out something that in the policy has been stricken, and this is on the page 6, the very top. You'll notice the language has been stricken. The board will establish the criteria for determining honor graduates to include valedictorian or salutatorian. And I wanted to just speak about that for a moment. We've stricken that language because in Lexington County, a practice we have followed for the past 20 years is not to select a valedictorian and a salutatorian. And I will say that that's a practice that many school districts around the country actually have gone to. So as you know, we do recognize at graduation our top 10% of students or students who have a 4.0 or higher. I believe we heard this evening one of our students who received the award, Autumn, has an extraordinary GPA and 5th in her class. So she will certainly be recognized. So I just want to point that out to you. It is a practice we have for over 20 years exercised in our district. So I'm looking forward to next month. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have tonight, or feel free to call me, email me during the month. Be happy to answer any questions.
Board, any questions or comments for Dr. Talley?
I just have a quick question, and you about the marching band.
Yes.
Because that's new as a PE credit.
That's right.
But I know we have a number of band students who take who are in upper level bands that receive honors weight. How would that calculate if they're using that honors band as also their PE credit?
Well, it's for PE 1, so that's one. That would be their marching band 1. That would be their credit for PE 1.
So they would still get the honors weight for the band and the regular weight for the PE credit?
Yes, two separate. It's two separate courses.
Well, I just think it's that Ms. Spearman recognized in the Department of Ed, it leveled the playing field, because when our kids applied to college and our grading system didn't match the rest of the nation, it's really hard when you apply out of the county, and kids had to configure things, and I'm glad to see us kind of matching up with everybody else. So, I did hear that from parents a lot, that it was very frustrating that we were on such a different grading scale than the rest of the nation. So thank you. And board, we will vote on that next month, right, Dr. Talley? Yeah, so
That's
that will be
correct.
an action item next month.
Quick question. When we look at course withdrawals, how does that compare to colleges? Are they kind of under similar operating guidelines when a student decides to withdraw from a course? Say they think they're going to take AP English and they get in there, it's like, hey, this might not be for me. How does that?
I don't think colleges are as child-centered as we are regarding that. But do you have an answer for that, Mr. Poole, other than?
Okay. And when we look at withdrawal, is there any factor given to kids on IEPs or 504s? Does that play? Are there guidelines surrounding that?
Yes, they're not around withdrawals. An IEP team can make decisions, but in terms of withdrawing, we have some discretion about withdrawal capacity, where there wouldn't be a negative GPA impact. But ultimately, Mr. Bender and I always consult. We can come right back to the UGP and see what it says.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, board?
Just educate. If you don't mind, educate me. Under the advanced learning opportunities, the Advanced International Certificate of Education courses, are those like foreign exchange? Like, you go to Spain for 8 weeks and take a class? What is that?
Those are courses like AP courses, IB courses. There are courses called Advanced International Certificate of Education. We don't offer any of those in our district.
Oh, okay.
A state that does, I've learned this week, I've educated myself, is the state of Florida. It's offering more of those than any other state.
Okay. Anything else, board? Okay. We'll now move to 13.0, which is items for board information only. We have a general fund financial report. We have a general fund budget transfer report. We have a quarterly grant award report and an annual unauthorized procurements report. At this time, we're going to move to 14.0 and go to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Thank you, Ms. Green. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. All in favor, please stand up, and thank you so much.